This week on a special edition of NHRA Today, a look at the 1991 USA Drag Festival from Fuji Speedway in Japan, including the first head-to-head international encounter in Pro Stock. East meets West in the battle of Pro Stock bikes, and the Oriental outings of Team NHRA. From the land of the rising sun, these stories and more on this special edition of NHRA Today. Japan, land of the rising sun, a country of beauty, honor and tradition, an island nation that is home to 125 million industrious people. It is to this competitive country that a delegation of 34 NHRA drag racers traveled to from the United States of America to compete in the first ever international drag race. Hello everyone and welcome to this special edition of NHRA Today. I'm Steve Evans. In the next half hour, we'll take you to the other side of the world, literally, following the NHRA drag racing contingent on and off the track as they enter into the first ever head-to-head international event, the East Bear USA Drag Festival. Now, North American drag racers have gone abroad in exhibition races, and to say the least, drag racing is popular in other countries. NHRA has been working to foster the growth of the sport.
The NHRA Board of Directors earlier this year took the position that the association would become much more interested and involved in drag racing outside of North America. And we're very much in a fact-finding phase at this point in time. We've been out making contacts around the world, attending meetings and attending drag racing events. And I think that our influence from our 40 years of experience and our significant resources is starting to play a role in standardizing rules and kind of legitimizing competition around the world. We've taken the position that we want to nurture it and help it mature in every way that we possibly can.
NHRA has participated in exhibition matches in Japan as recently as 1989. When this meet was attempted in 1990, rain put a halt to the event after testing.
Management here at Fuji International Raceway have the raceway booked every single weekend. And so you can't just squeeze in and come back with a rained out race. So it was one full year until we were able to finally see these cars in competition against each other.
Before any car could attempt to pass down the track, the NHRA team vehicles had to be uncrated. They were shipped, then trucked to the track, where the racers uncrated and moved into their assigned pits and began preparing for competition. Once everything was ready, the Americans made one checkout pass on the track.
I took it easy the first pass down the track. It was really slick out there, and I was the first pro bike out. There's no traction out there.
Now, many Japanese do not speak English, so all communication is done through interpreters, including laying out the ground rules for the race and reaching compromises on the differences between the two countries' rules. Ox International coordinated the overall event. Acting as host for the NHRA contingent was Yasuyoshi Nakajima, chairman of Roadrunner Racing Club.
This is just the first step for us, and when we think about today, it's still an early stage.
Stay with us. When we return, we'll see how our American racers fared overseas.
NHRA Today is being brought to you by Castrol GTX, the motor oil that provides maximum protection against viscosity and thermal breakdown.
Welcome back to NHRA Today from Fuji Speedway in Japan. When an entire team of racers travels abroad, they can only bring the bare necessities due to space considerations. Space in Japan is a precious commodity, and the pit area is no exception. The Winston Finals rainout had forced some last-minute changes in the NHRA team lineup. Warren Johnson, not originally scheduled to race in Japan, came without the benefit of a crew.
I guess we're kind of trying to survive out here, so we'll work back and forth between the Scribner brothers and myself, and I'm sure we'll be all right. Our intention was to have Scott drive. With the problem at the World Finals being rained out, Scott, having been bumped down to 4th with the potential getting back up to 3rd by virtue of one more round win, we felt that it was just in our own best interest, since the car was already here, for me to drive it.
Dave Earl replaced Dave Schultz in the Pro Stock bike ranks at the last minute as well.
We had real short notice. Originally, I was coming over to help Russ Olmsted, and we found out on Monday night about 9 o'clock that I needed to come over here and ride.
One Pro Stock driver, Joe Lapone, could not make the trip due to a non-racing injury. His car sat idle in the pits on display while he recuperated in the States.
Joe's car will be towed down the racetrack so that we can show the Japanese people that Joe did intend to be here. He just couldn't make it due to physical problems.
Both Japanese racers and race fans were curious about the American machines. And if the language barrier could be bridged, a question could be answered.
Sometimes they bring by an interpreter and they ask us all kinds of questions, right down to what the stroke of the engine is, and knowing the situation, we give them the time and answer their questions.
The least the newfound fans would walk away with was a picture or an autograph. And since most of the Pro Stock bikes are Japanese, they held the most similarity between the two countries. And here's Dave McClellan to tell us how Team NHRA fared.
Like most international contests these days, a colorful and patriotic opening ceremony kicked off this historic day in drag racing. A slow parade of American and Japanese racers passed down in front of the throng of fans, all trying to get a better look at the competitors. Joe Lapone's car was one of those towed down Fuji International Speedway, but this would be the only action this car would see, as Joe was still stateside due to illness. One of those moments that every member of the U.S. team will never forget was the playing of the Star-Spangled Banner. Having the national anthem played took on a special meaning for these racers as they were representing their country for the first time on foreign soil in international competition. After the dignitaries and the racers from both countries were introduced and balloons released skyward, it was time to make motorsports history. The Pro Stock bikes were the first to taste battle as a pair of Suzukis ridden by Ron Ayers in the near lane took on Masahiro Hanma in round 1. Ayers quickly took out his Japanese competitor with one of the quickest bike runs of the day. The next race pitted Russ Olmsted in the near lane against Moriyuki Hanma, the brother of the Japanese rider who had just lost to Ayers. And like his brother, he was sent packing by the American rider as Olmsted made it 2 in a row for the U.S. team. The third race of round 1 featured Dave Earl riding a Kawasaki Ninja and the 1991 Japanese champion Yasushi Kamanaka in the far lane. In one of the closest races of the day, Earl defeated the Japanese rider with a narrow victory and leaving only one last hope for the home team. The last race of round 1, Nigel Patrick, riding a Suzuki in the near lane, made it a clean sweep for the U.S. team by defeating Kunimitsu Mihara. The semifinals was made up of all Uncle Sam's riders. Dave Earl's Kawasaki slipped by Ron Ayers' Suzuki in the first race, and Nigel Patrick defeated Russ Olmsted, whose Suzuki experienced mechanical problems. That set up the final with Patrick's new Sandy Cosman Suzuki against the borrowed Jim Morrow Kawasaki with Dave Earl aboard in the far lane. Patrick showed that he had the Fuji track mastered as he nailed down the quickest time of the day by defeating Earl and picking up the win in this first international meeting between the two countries.
This is a dream coming true, coming to Japan, winning, putting on a good show for the fans, NHRA. This is fantastic. It's a dream come true.
Not only did the U.S.-Japan Drag Festival feature the Pro Stock Challenge, but it also included exhibition runs by Jim Adolph at the wheel of R.J. Trotter's Top Fueler and the jet car Cardiac Arrest with Doug Brown driving the old Roger Gustin car. Both runs proved to be a big hit with the Japanese audience.
When you back up from the burnout, you can see the fans waving and cheering, and they're very ecstatic about these cars, obviously the Top Fuel car, and we react to them. I've had an opportunity, even though I can't hear them, I can see them waving, and so I wave myself, and I feel good about that.
After smoking the tires on his first pass, Adolph made his last run count as he turned a Japanese Top Fuel record time of 6.09 seconds and sending the American team home with an accomplishment that they had set out to establish.
Castrol presents the GTX Pipeline, the latest news from the world of drag racing.
Pat Austin, who made drag racing history at the 1991 Heartland Nationals by winning in both Top Fuel and Top Alcohol Dragster, has signed a new sponsor for both cars for the coming season, the Red Wing Shoe Company.
The thing that's impressed me most about the Walt Austin Racing Team is the fact that it is a family organization. Working with Red Wing Shoe, that's also been a family organization. Started in 1905. It looks like a very well-run organization by looking at all their equipment, their trucks, the people. It looks like quite a quality type company. And I think that we look forward as Red Wing Shoe people to working with this team and look forward to a lot of success.
Welcome back to this special edition of NHRA Today from Japan. Now, while NHRA has been around for over 40 years, drag racing in Japan is only in its adolescence. The technology we are accustomed to in the United States does not yet exist here at Fuji. Oil spills are blotted, tamped with ash, and swept in Japan, opposed to the traction compound and jet drying method we have available in the U.S. The brooms, usually used for track sweeping, were replaced by push brooms brought over by NHRA. VHT is a liquid traction enhancer applied to tracks in the U.S. and not normally used in Japan. For this event, however, 55 gallons were applied to the surface at Fuji, barely enough to cover both lanes to half track, but enough to overcome some of the slick conditions. Japanese racers don't receive time slips. Their times are posted near the tower, and the racers wait until an entire qualifying session is completed before they can see how they ran. A distinct difference in how the Japanese racers transport their cars, other than the size of the trailer, is the method of loading the car onto the truck. It is driven up a dock rather than up a ramp. But all differences aside, when it comes down to the racing, some things are universal.
Not only did the 34-member U.S. team travel around Japan together, but they also pitched in and helped each other when needed. When Warren Johnson needed some assistance with his Oldsmobile, Dick Scribner was there to lend Warren a hand. The American racers used different setups in qualifying and compared notes as to which worked the best. That kind of camaraderie was prevalent throughout the U.S. team's pit, but the Americans also found time to help some Japanese racers with their problems. This Top Alcohol Funny Car team was rescued by the R.J. Trotter Top Fuel crew.
Last year we had a rain out and they came and asked for some help. We had nothing to do, so we went down and went through their car. It had a Chrysler, alcohol Chrysler, and got the timing and everything all straightened out and got the thing running for them. So since then, they've called us in the state to ask us questions, and so we're back here today doing the same thing again. We loaned them our starter and fixed the car so they could get it running. They wouldn't be running this weekend if it wasn't for that, so we're tickled to death to do it.
The Japanese racers have built an increasing inventory of American Top Alcohol Funny Cars. The Harry's Corvette entry, piloted by Yuichi Oyama, that won the season title, once belonged to Tom Akers. This Dodge at one time was owned by Jim Dunn. And this Olds was driven by John Force in the States. The Japanese are serious about the Top Alcohol Funny Car class. The Harry's team sent their driver to the Hawley Drag Racing School and brought over an American to crew chief the car. One interesting thing that they do here is have an inspirational leader. The Harry's Corvette team had a well-known Japanese comedian to help cheer on their team. With the vast differences in Pro Stock formulas, Big Block versus the Turbo 6, the Top Alcohol Funny Car category may become the international class of the future. With only one qualifying pass for the American Pro Stock drivers, there was a little apprehension when they came out to take on their Japanese foes due to the slick surface of the Fuji track and the high power of the American cars. The first race featured Harry Scribner's Pontiac in the near lane and the Datsun Z of Yoshimi Hanazuka, the Japanese Pro Stock title holder. Not wanting to red light, Scribner watched as the Datsun got off the line first, but it wasn't long before the powerful Pontiac posted an easy win. The second race of round one had Randy Haggerty's Camaro against Kanji Wada's Nissan 280ZX in the far lane. Haggerty kept the U.S. sweep intact as he defeated Wada easily. Warren Johnson was the last of the American contingent to take to the track. He was matched up against Akihito Yukon's Nissan 300ZX in the far lane. The Nissan put up a fight, but W.J.'s Olds was up for the challenge and put the Japanese competitor on the trailer. The semifinal round found Harry Scribner defeating Masataka Ota and Warren Johnson barely getting by Randy Haggerty to set up the All-American Pro Stock final. Scribner had lane choice and put Johnson in the far lane where the Japanese had raced. These two racers have met many times on the other side of the world and both cut good lights. Scribner's car got a little loose, but it was still close at the finish line. So close, in fact, that since there's no win lights, the crews had to wait for the translation. Johnson got the win and also set a Japanese Pro Stock record of 7.54 seconds. Even though the Americans swept this Pro Stock challenge, the Japanese gained the respect of the winner.
They're competitive. You have to realize that we've been at this for 20 plus years, and they're just getting going on this program. I would suspect that now that they've seen the caliber of U.S. competition, that they're definitely going to step up, and I'm probably going to surprise us next time we come around.
Warren Johnson, the first ever winner of the U.S.-Japan Pro Stock Challenge.
Drag racing has captured the fancy of the Japanese public. They filled the grandstands, paying $80 for a reserved seat and another $60 to get into the pits for the two-day event. Some of them brought along camcorders, while others brought the entire family. They watched intently, eagerly waiting for the next run, and when it was time, they got excited. Some of the Americans were surprised by the enthusiasm of the Japanese.
I was kind of prepared that being as polite a people as they are, that they don't really get into it, but surprisingly, I thought they did in the final. There was a lot of cheering and crowd waving and so forth, so I think they really enjoyed it.
The race also attracted the fascination of the Japanese press, as every TV outlet, newspaper, and wire service in the area had several representatives. With the help of an interpreter, Pro Stock driver Harry Scribner answered questions about drag racing for Japanese TV.
Set the cars up so they'll get a little more bite.
Okay, let me tell that first. まず日本の富士スピードウェイの場合は向こうと
A video of the event was produced to be sold at the concession stand, where just like the concession stands in America, you could buy a souvenir or food and drink. The drink menu included colas, beer and fruit juice, but that's where the similarities end. For food, you could get fried noodles, which seemed to be a favorite at this race, various fish dishes, chicken on a stick, here's our favorite, pancakes with cabbage and radishes. They also had sausage on a stick, corn on the cob, and octopus pie. Yum, yum. As for souvenirs, T-shirts went for $20, or you could purchase a telephone credit card with drag racing pictures on it. The usual event decals, programs, or related items were available, but like everything else in Japan, they were priced more than in the States. American souvenirs from NHRA events were hot commodities. You could get hats, patches, T-shirts, and stickers without having to make the 11-hour trip. And speaking of NHRA stickers and patches, you can join NHRA for $48 and get 48 issues of National Dragster, a pin, patch, decal, and rulebook. Plus, if you call this number on the screen right now, you'll get the Diamond P Video Drag Racing 90 free. So go ahead and make that call. Welcome back to NHRA Today. Anytime someone journeys from home, they expect changes. And halfway around the world, the differences are remarkable. Now, one obvious contrast is the right-hand orientation of the cars. Steering wheel on the right, drive on the left. But in order to purchase an automobile in Japan, you must be able to prove you have somewhere to park it. The Japanese diet is very dissimilar to ours, yet it is one of the healthiest in the world. Seafood, rice, and noodles being staples. Chopsticks are the preferred eating utensil, although forks are available. Our group opted to master the chopsticks. Accommodations in Japan make the most of space, and not in every room do you find a Western bed. Now, after the East Fair USA Drag Festival was over, Mr. Nakajima, the host, held a banquet in honor of his guest. It was a special occasion, complete with customary kimonos and a wide variety of traditional native foods. The evening's entertainment, highly popular in the country, was karaoke, giving hosts and guests an opportunity to show their vocal talents. Over the course of the 9-day excursion to Japan, our racing contingent had to keep a fairly strict timetable. Now, while they saw much of the countryside through bus windows, our host allowed time to see some of the natural wonders and historical landmarks of the nation, including the Imperial Palace in Tokyo, the Tokyo Tower, resembling the Eiffel Tower in Paris, majestic Mount Fuji, which can be seen clearly on average of only 30 days throughout the year, sunrise over the Pacific coast, the port city of Shimoda and the Izu Peninsula. The racers were treated to spectacles of nature and man-made marvels. And the final evening spent in Tokyo included the lights of the city and the nightlife that goes with it. There's a feeling that will remain with these people for the rest of their lives. A sentiment of patriotism and an awareness of having the privilege of representing the United States in competition on foreign soil. Time won't fade the lasting memories for 34 individuals who experienced firsthand the initial international event that may be the forerunner of future global drag meets. For all of us here on NHRA Today, I'm Steve Evans. We'll see you next week here on TNN.
NHRA Today has been brought to you by Castrol GTX, engineered for today's smaller cars. Promotional consideration provided for and a fee paid by the special offer from Diamond P.
For years, you've all loved Diamond P Sports Home Video, Decade of Thrills, the ultimate drag racing experience. Well, I've got some great news. Don Perdomo and I are back with the all-new 90-minute Decade 2, the thunder of the 80s. Eddie Hill cracks the fours, then flies away. Connie Coletta marches past 290. Ed McCullough and John Collins will never forget the Cajun Nationals of 84, nor Kenny Bernstein, Maple Grove, PA, 87. Glidden won his 50th and his 75th in the same decade. It's all in Decade of Thrills, too. To get your copies in $24.95 to the address in your screen, or better yet, call 1-800-767-1600. Visa and MasterCard accepted, no CODs. Call now, 1-800-767-1600.
NHRA Today is a presentation of Diamond P Sports.